Hey everybody, how's it going? Daybreaker Rein coming at you with Just Another Gaming Rant, and I want to briefly touch on a subject that kind of came to my attention the other day. This is a bit of an old subject matter. It's not really new, but it is something that is new to me because I just learned about it, so I kind of wanted to chime in and give my thoughts on it as a whole with the industry in general on how this is actually going about. For those of you who don't know, Super Nintendo emulation was made possible via the Virtual Console on the Nintendo 3DS. Now, the downside is that the only model of 3DS that allows Super Nintendo emulation at the current moment is the latest model, which was the new 3DS XL, which had all the extra peripherals and buttons and the built-in amiibo support. Unfortunately for old 3DS users, they're not able to utilize this, which is a bit of a shame. But that's not really what I want to talk about, because something came to light that I was just happening to look through and kind of see what Super Nintendo games that they were offering via the Virtual Console, and it's not really a lot at the moment. It's just pretty much a handful. Mostly more notable stuff. They have Super Metroid and Super Castlevania 4 on there, but those games didn't really interest me that much. As much as I'd love to have them on the go, I already own them physically, so that's not really a big deal. It's not a desperate need to have those games. But the ones that really did interest me were the multiplayer ones, like Mario Kart and Super Street Fighter 2. And I think that's pretty neat that there are actually multiplayer games on there, except the problem that we're running into is apparently, according to everything that I was able to gather, there is no emulation support for multiplayer for these games. So you can't do any sort of download play or Wi-Fi connectivity with Super Street Fighter 2 and or Mario Kart, which to me is a bit of a problem because a lot of those two-player games, especially like something like Street Fighter and Mario Kart, more of their appeal is the fact that you can play them with friends and that you want to play like two players so you can have somebody to fight against and or race against. And that's kind of a big draw to some of those older games, is the multiplayer feature. So it's kind of strange in a way that we live in such an era where the company itself, the people who made the Super Nintendo, who would have all the source material, can't implement some sort of download play Wi-Fi connectivity with their older games. I actually think that would make it more prominent for these games to be purchased via the eShop because, hey, I can buy Super Street Fighter 2, take it with me wherever I go, and I can actually play with a friend who has a 3DS as well. I have come to understand that some of the NES games actually do feature download play, which is neat, and that's awesome. That's how it should be. That's how emulation should be going if it's coming from the legitimate company themselves, which kind of wants to get me on the subject matter with Sony. Because Sony's been doing the same thing. They've been porting PS2 titles onto the PS4 with trophy support, which is all fine and dandy. Price points are a little high. I think you could probably end up getting some of these games cheaper physically, let alone buying a PlayStation 2 and being able to just play them that way. You won't get the same like HD up-res or anything like that, but I mean there are converters and stuff that exist for that specific reason if that's tickles your fancy. But the problem is one of the most recent ones that came to PS4 was Samurai Showdown 6. Now, Samurai Showdown 6 is kind of a unique case because this game, as try as they might, things like MAME and Fightcade just cannot emulate it. I don't know what it is about this specific entry that is just unemulatable. So the idea of having it available on a modern gen console would bring open a huge market for a lot of people who like Samurai Showdown, because to me personally Samurai Showdown 6 was probably one of the better ones in the series. Samurai Showdown 5 Special is pretty damn good too. But you would think that it would be more prominent to have an online feature. Unfortunately, the PS2 port, as far to my knowledge and as far as what I could gather, at least with the American release, didn't feature any sort of online support. I think, though, according to like what I was looking at with the Japanese box art, it does say online up in the top right corner of the box art, but that might just be a company. I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't really find any information pointing to what exactly that means, if it means online support or if online is a Japanese company that helped produce or publish the game. But to me that's a huge problem because it's like fighting games are more fun when you have somebody to play them with. And granted, I'm not against local play. I love the days where you could grab a couple buddies and have Halo matches and play Mario Kart and do Super Smash Brothers. I love, party couch potato kind of games. Like, I love that stuff, and I still enjoy it to this day. But we're in such a time period where a lot of that is kind of not becoming the norm anymore. Is really that you don't have a second person sitting around next to you. It's like all about online. So you would think that when you're trying to market a game, especially bring it back from an era where it was only ported to the PS2, that you would try some way to make an online feature that you can add into the game other than just trophy support. See, Garo Mark of the Wolves is actually getting a full-fledged report specifically for the PS4, which will feature online support. I kind of wish they had done the same for Samurai Showdown 6 as opposed to just porting over the PS2 version. So this is kind of where I'm at. It's not impossible to do online functionality with emulation. Fightcade is pretty big amongst the FGC. A lot of people like Fightcade. Now, it doesn't emulate everything, but it does emulate a good handful of really good fighting games, such like Street Fighter, Third Strike, the Street Fighter Alpha games, and so every other Samurai Showdown other than Samurai Showdown 6. So I don't think online is impossible, especially when it's coming from the companies themselves, the people who made the consoles that these games were once on. So if Nintendo can do download play for their NES titles, why can't they do it for their Super Nintendos or their GBA titles? I hear that GBA multiplayer games that are available on the Virtual Console don't have any sort of multiplayer support, which is really a shame, because there are quite a few multiplayer games on the GBA that are rather good. Games I do know that I was reading into are some of the NES library, and I guess all the Pokemon games via the Virtual Console actually do have some sort of online connectivity, which is good, especially for Pokemon, because it would be boring as hell if you couldn't trade or battle other people. But I guess my major gripe is that nowadays we live in such a time where online connectivity is kind of a staple now. It's kind of basically it's a must-have, really, when it comes to a lot of things. It's very rare that you'll find games that don't have some sort of leaderboard mechanic, even if it's just the bare bone basics. If it's just like leaderboards, here's your score, here's your times, things like that. We live in such an era where that's kind of a staple and it's kind of expected. So all I can say really is that I hope Nintendo somewhere down the line does offer some sort of emulation support for this, to see some of these games, because I personally would love to have Super Street Fighter 2 on the go, other than just like on a modded PSP or whatever. It'd actually be really cool to be able to play with friends, because I'm not necessarily sure if there do exist emulators via the PSP, like a soft modded PSP. I haven't looked into this, but there might be online LAN play, you could connect, because I know that even with a soft modded PSP, you could still do the same with PSP games. You can just LAN them and everything like that, and you could connect PSP to PSP and set up lobbies and all that good shit. But anyways, guys, I just thought I'd get my opinions out there. I hope this was a little bit better than the last one, and gets a little bit better reception, just overall, that I don't sound monotone and I'm actually talking from the heart rather than, reading off a script. I'm really trying to focus more on offshooting these, and this was a subject that I could actually focus a little bit better on than the last subject I was trying to record, which ended up I recorded it over and over and over and over again, and I just was not happy with the result. But hopefully this one went over well. Hope you all gave it a good listen, and tell me what you think. Tell me what you think Nintendo should do, or Sony should do, or hell, even Microsoft. With a lot of this backwards compatibility, do you think that these games should have that multiplayer, online emulation, especially for the older titles like Super Nintendo stuff, GBA stuff, and even this PS2 stuff that's being released on PS4? Tell me what you think. And yeah, I think that's it for me, guys. So this has been Daybreaker Rein, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Take it easy, guys.